Of the morning is Matthew Hoffman from the Lodi Wine Grape Commission, and he's here to talk about leveraging the knowledge network to extend sustainable agriculture.
Thanks. So maybe I should have called the title Leveraging the Knowledge Network just to extend agricultural knowledge in general, but there was too many knowledges in the title, so I decided to opt against that. I work at the Lodi Wine Grape Commission. We are a marketing order out of California, the CDFA. Essentially what we do, two missions: promote and brand Lodi as a quality wine grape growing region. What I do at the Wine Grape Commission is coordinate our viticulture research and outreach programs. So I'll work with UC, CSU, and other scientists to conduct applied research in the vineyards and in labs and elsewhere. And we also have a suite of grower outreach services. So I'm not working within cooperative extension. I'm still consider myself an extensionist, and we work very closely with the universities. I think one of the main goals of any extension program is to support practitioner decision-making and practice adoption. And I think there's multiple pathways that you can employ to achieve this. I tend to organize them in terms of an explicit or formal learning pathway, where you might provide practitioners with resources that, like, printed documents or web-based resources. There's also an experiential learning pathway where folks learn through practical hands-on experience. There's also a social learning pathway where you learn from others. And so I categorize these learning pathways as such because it helps me organize my work, both academically and practically. And it also helps you think about how you can leverage each one of those pathways to accelerate an otherwise natural process of learning that would unfold through each one of those pathways. I'm going to be focusing on the social learning pathway. Social learning is something we talk about a lot, especially here at this conference. I want to be clear what I mean about a social network or social learning. It's not necessarily social media type social networks. These are actual social networks of growers, farm advisors, PCAs, etc. So the real social networks that we engage with on a daily basis. We encourage our practitioners, we all do, to engage in social learning through maybe social media or through networking in any other way. But I think we need to be much more scientific about how we go about doing that, and that's what I'm going to talk about here today. The field of network science and the methodology of social network analysis allows us to be very exacting by what we mean about leveraging the knowledge network and an individual's position in that network and their ability to spread and access information. This was a National Science Foundation study and a UC SAREP-funded study. Real briefly, surveys sent out to wine grape growers in 12 regions of California. We had exceptional response rates, 53% down to 32%, 40% average response rates in the surveys. Asked growers a wide range of questions related to extension and viticulture. Here's Lodi. Wine Grape Commission, where I work, we produce about 24% of California's crush, about 108,000 acres, 750 wine grape growers. So we ask growers to rank on a scale of 1 to 3 the usefulness of 24 different resources for accessing viticultural management information. And once again, we categorized all those resources in those 3 categories I mentioned earlier: experiential, social, and formal. Focusing on the social, so experiential or formal were the most useful. So growers said, I value most learning through my social networks and through personal experience. To break apart those 21 different information resources, just want to focus on the social right here. Pest control advisors, vineyard field crew, so employees of the wine grape growers, and other growers were ranked as the most useful social interactions for learning about vineyard management. Although the relative difference between the usefulness wasn't really all that much different. We have cooperative extension farm advisors as being, 63% of survey respondents said they are very useful versus 72% said pest control advisors are very useful. So no matter how you look at it, all these resources in the social learning category are considered pretty useful to growers. Just as a side note, the experiential learning is another very important learning pathway. Observations from own vineyards and trial and error were ranked very useful. Although in my opinion, it's much more difficult to facilitate experiential learning on a broad scale versus social learning. It's easier to put people with questions in touch with people who have solutions, easier than it is to engage people in a process that they're already doing in their vineyards, learning from experience. So we conducted network analysis. We asked our survey respondents to share the names of others whom they communicate with about vineyard management on a daily basis. And from that, we use social network analysis to model the network and run some analyses on it. The important message here is an individual's network, in that individual's position in that network impacts their ability to share and access information. So as you can see, not everybody's position in that network the same. We also have different categories of individuals in that network. The yellow nodes are individuals who are just farmers, just growers. These aqua nodes are individuals who are just outreach professionals. So they are only pest control advisors, or maybe they're sales reps, or they work for a winery as a grower outreach person. Those blue nodes, which are a very important category, are individuals who are boundary spanners, not just structurally in the network, but also professionally, qualitatively. So they are farmers, they own their own vineyards, or they manage other people's vineyards, and they also act as outreach professionals. So they have training at an expert level as well as the practical experience. Now, the key here is that those individuals that are the both category, they're both farmers and outreach professionals, they across every single region, so this is a geographically universal result, they are always positioned in the network in Napa, in the Central Coast, and in Lodi to have much more knowledge sharing relationships than other individuals. So what that tells us from an extension perspective is, are we and how are we engaging that category of folks in our extension efforts? So we can put a lot of effort into reaching out to growers, and that's not in question, that's growers are the main audience, but given limited resources, if you have faith that social learning is a natural process, how do you target individuals in that network to have a much broader reach? Okay, this is Paul Vertigal. He is the San Joaquin County Viticulture Farm Advisor. He is the most central actor in the network in Lodi. Across all regions, we found farm advisors and UCCE staff to have the highest number of knowledge sharing relationships. And I love showing this comparison because this is a photograph at one of our outreach events. We organized the Wine Grape Commission. And the photograph is very telling. Here you have Paul in the center of a group of wine grape growers, just like he is here in the center of the network. However, this presents a challenge. Don't worry about reading too much of this, but it's what we developed a measure called coverage. So, and it's the product of an individual, the population level measure. So the number of individuals in that profession multiplied by the number of knowledge sharing relationships that they have. So farm advisors, they're only one per county, right? So you multiply 1 by the number of knowledge sharing relationships you have, and you can get an idea. Let's say you get one kernel of information you give to that farm advisor and say, Paul, go. Spread that information. He probably has the ability to spread it to all of his contacts one step out. However, folks like vineyard management and pest control advisors, they're larger populations that also have high centrality measures in that network. So if you already have a relationship with those individuals and you give them that kernel of information and say go, in one level in that network, they're probably going to be able to reach more individuals. There's other things you need to consider too, but This is an important finding, and it gives us the ability to be network smart about how we do extension. And a lot of these vineyard management people, and some pest control advisors, can be those boundary spanning individuals, the both category. So that's a double bang for your buck. If they have high measure of coverage and also boundary spanners, they're very influential actors in the knowledge network. So some basic principles of what I call network smart extension are, you have to increase the awareness of what others, increase awareness of what others know. I am never going to ask for your advice about anything if I don't know what you know. So we have to be creative about how we use this stuff. And if I have time, I can give you some examples of how we're trying to do this in Lodi, but I just want to stick to the principles right now. So your constituents, your growers, your practitioners need to be aware of others' expertise. That's a starting point. You need to increase the perceived value of what others know. So I might know what somebody else knows, but if I don't really agree with that person, I might have a personal conflict. I just otherwise don't value their opinion. I'm not going to be accessing the information. And as we know, sometimes our own biases get in the way of utilizing somebody else's advice. So we have to find, mutual ground, I suppose. Increasing access to what others know. We have to make social learning easy. Remember, social learning is something that is a natural process, but from an extension perspective, how do we accelerate that process? Reduce the costs associated with accessing what others know. I'm sorry, let's back up. I got a better example. Increasing access to what others know. So if you provide outreach services of contact information, maybe, or allowing outreach platforms for where practitioners can figure out ways to contact others. So kind of paving that road. So reducing the cost associated with accessing. Cost is a very general idea, but let's say you're new to a region. You might know somebody that has an answer. It's not your personality to approach them directly. There's kind of a personal cost there. Time is a cost. So how hard is it to access contact information from others in the network and so on? This is a large body of research, not only of myself and my colleagues at UC Davis and the Lodi Wine Grape Commission, but there's research on the partnership model of agricultural extension, which is very social network based, and the field of network science does focus on agriculture, although there's many research gaps. And so I'd be happy to share a lot of pieces of literature, an example of what I call network smart extension, to give you a starting point. These are our websites, lodigrowers.com, and then Center for Environmental Policy and Behavior, and that's my email. So I think we can just open it up to questions because that's usually pretty fruitful. Right. So on many levels. So one is, how does the UC system reward the work of knowledge brokerage? So knowledge agency is, if I'm an expert and somebody asks me a question, I can help them with a solution. Knowledge brokerage is matchmaking. So putting people with questions in touch with people with answers. And there's an expression that I don't know where I heard it. Maybe you've heard. Maybe it's a famous quote. I don't know. But farm advisors are second sons of farms too small. So people that work in extension are often passionate about agriculture. They come from agriculture, and they have training in the agricultural sciences. But why aren't we training students for extension work and training people and rewarding them in their careers? This is a common discussion in extension. Is professional advancement just academic based, or is it practice based? So there's at that institutional level. At the day-to-day level, I try myself to educate myself on who knows what and who's got challenges, and it takes a lot of time. You know, it's telephone calls and sometimes social media or just emails, putting people in touch with one another. So being vigilant about that. 5 minutes, okay. Tangible examples? I don't know, was that too vague for you? Maybe I can drill down a little bit more.
That provides an outline. I was just curious if you had.
I have not done anything at the Wine Grape Commission yet. One thing we've been doing is the coffee shop blog. So we try to get locals at lodigrowers.com, try to get locals, growers, pest control advisors, farm advisors, the whole scope, to write articles for it. So this puts local knowledge at the forefront of the community, and their contact information is always shared. I have not been able to follow up with them on whether or not they have been able to build more relationships as a result of that, but any more questions? Yes?
What software did you use?
The question was, which software did we use to do the network analysis, and does it identify gaps in the network? I used Aura, O-R-A. It was developed with the CASOS, C-A-S-O-S Institute at Carnegie Mellon. They're one of the leading institutes on network analysis, and they also offer a week-long course on how to use their software and network analysis principles. And yes, it identifies gaps. So the networks I showed you have a network structure that is it's dense in the core and less dense on the periphery. You can also have networks where you might see something like this and something similar connected by just a few ties. Which tells you there's knowledge silos, and there's only a few key individuals that are boundary spanners, structural boundary spanners. And so, then you can develop network strategies to, make that more efficient. And there's a bunch of literature I can point you to that explains this. Network analysis is used in corporations. Halliburton did some amazing stuff on how to make their business more efficient. Right, okay, so in network analysis, you have to be very exact about what the ties represent. In this case, nodes represent individuals. Each node has attributes. In this case, the attributes are job categories. And our ties are reported knowledge sharing relationships. So if I listed you in my survey as somebody that I share advice for, that is a tie. Ties can also be valued. We didn't ask them that, so they can say, this is the first person I go to for advice versus second, or they could be types, familial relationships, professional relationships, or most trusted versus least trusted. Yeah. Woman on the left. Right. So these networks are organized by centrality is pulled closer to the center. It's just a way of visually displaying the data in a useful way. Yes, but remember it's also a challenge because it's a knowledge bottleneck where people can only tend so many relationships before they lose the quality of those relationships. Yeah, I think I understand your question. Yes, so the question was, can network analysis not only map individual relationships, but projects they're associated with? And there's different structures of data sets you can use. That would be called a bimodal network, where you look at not just the individuals in the network, but one node could be, their counties, for example, or their focus, whether it's viticulture or pomology or something else. So there's many ways of analyzing a network. Thanks.